Every day in the USA, people find themselves in court.
When I scheduled this, you, Mr. Olsiams, told me we only need 2 hours. And I know better. I know better. So I scheduled it for all day. I blocked my whole day off, knowing better, because it is taking Mr. Olsiams, it's going to take him 3 hours to cross-examine Mr. Brimacombe. And then after you're done, we get to move on to redirect with Mr. Anderson. And then we get to move on to recross with you, probably for another 2 hours, of Mr. Brimacombe. And then we get to see if we have other witnesses. And then maybe you'll have a few minutes to provide your own testimony. Okay? So again, I would cut it a little bit short and I would get to the point a lot faster than you're getting. Because today's your day. All right? Because again, you only asked for a few hours and I gave you the whole day knowing better. So let's kind of do it a little quicker, okay? Next question.
So to be more specific then, Mr. Brimacombe, when exactly did Suzanne trespass on your property?
Multiple times over multiple years. I do not recall the last time.
How exactly did she trespass on your property, Mr. Brimacombe?
Your family parked vehicles on my property.
Isn't it true, Mr. Brimacombe, you don't have any specific evidence of Suzanne trespassing on your property? True, correct? You don't have any specific evidence that Suzanne trespassed on your property?
I have multiple instances of multiple vehicles being on my property with Suzanne there. Whether Suzanne's the one who parked the car or you parked the car or your children parked the car, and trailers and snowmobiles, I don't know.
Okay. Let's go down to paragraph 17. You say defendants have vandalized and damaged Affiant's trail cams on Affiant's real property. So you have trail cams posted off the roadway, correct?
I have trail cams on my property, yes.
Okay. And if I can recall your testimony from December 4th, you said that your testimony was that I specifically, or somebody from my family specifically damaged your trail cam, correct?
I believe that to be true, yes.
Okay. Where is the picture? It's a trail cam. Where is the picture that somebody damaged your trail cam, Mr. Brimacombe?
I believe that's exhibit 8, maybe.
It is exhibit 8.
I don't see exhibit 8.
Exhibit 8 contains 4
9.
pages, but the last page is blank.
I don't see exhibit 8. I apologize.
Mr. Anderson, if you have it, can you kindly show it to him?
Brimacombe, this doesn't show anybody damaging, vandalizing your property, correct? It's just a picture of your trail cam.
These are pictures of my vandalized trail cams.
So again, you don't have any evidence that either Suzanne or myself vandalized your trail cam, correct?
Objection calls for legal conclusion.
And speculation.
He's the one that's claiming in his affidavit that we damaged his trail cam. All he's showing is a picture of the trail cam.
I understand that's your argument.
I'm asking for evidence.
Stop. Mr. Brimacombe, do you have any direct evidence that Mr. Olsiums or any of his family members did any tampering or damage to your trail cams?
The road is about a mile and a quarter thereabouts. It's at the end of a road. It's very unusual for other people to even be in that vicinity. All 3 times where my trail cams were vandalized,
And I'm gonna get there, Mr. Olsiums.
all 3 times that the trail cams were vandalized, he and his family were up there.
All right, so you suspect, but you don't have direct evidence, correct?
I suspect, but I don't have direct evidence other.
All I need, that's all I need. Next question.
So isn't it true, Mr. Vermacombe, that the damage, what damage are you claiming to your trail cam? It looks like it wasn't hit by anything. Or what damage are you claiming?
The trail cam, I believe it's the first picture. I don't have the exhibit in front of me, was stabbed with something pointed. A knife, a screwdriver, a pen. The other times were fire pit ashes. In exhibit 10, I believe it is. You pointed at the camera, which is in November or October. And then the next month, and the month after that, and a couple months after that, the cameras were all damaged.
But again, Mr. Vermacombe, you don't have any direct evidence. that
Asked
either
and
Suzanne-
answered.
If it's a trail cam, Mr. Vermacombe, if somebody is coming at the trail cam with a pipe or some kind of an object to damage it, it should take a picture of that happening, correct? Where is that picture?
No, not necessarily.
Well, can you explain to the court, how is it that a trail cam captures other pictures, but wouldn't capture a picture coming at the trail cam with an object to damage it and show pictures of it being struck and hit, Mr. Vermacombe?
I don't design trail cams. My understanding is, number one, the camera points one direction. So if something came from the side or behind, it would not take a picture.
And how does ash damage a trail cam? Can't you just wash the trail cam, Mr. Vermacombe?
The ash was caked on the trail cam. I did clean the trail cam, but yes, it damaged the trail cam.
How did it damage the trail cam? I'm asking you specifically, Mr. Vermacombe. How did ash damage the trail cam?
Caused it not to function.
How did it's a surface particles on a camera. How did it cause it not to function, Mr. Vermacombe?
It clogged up the camera.
Where is the picture of the person coming to the camera with a container of ash, throwing the ash on your camera, Mr. Vermacombe? Are you saying that the trail cam didn't capture that either?
You can come behind it or from the side.
So you're claiming that somebody came from behind the camera and threw ash on it from behind,
I'm saying that's a possibility.
but you have no real direct evidence of that.
Objection other than the ash sitting in the camera.
Sustained.
Okay, so again, to sum up this paragraph, Mr. Vermacombe, you have no direct
I
evidence.
have enough. I
Okay.
got all of the stuff on the trail cam
Gotcha.
I need.
All right. Paragraph 18, Mr. Vermacombe, you say defendants have graded and damaged the dirt road that leads to plaintiff's real property. Okay. Can you tell us what you mean by that one? How has Suzanne and I damaged the road that leads to your property?
You've been out with some sort of vehicle. I don't know my vehicles very well. And you've run your vehicle over the road. That has damaged the road as well as flattened the road when the road should be more bowed so water runs off the road.
I have a question before we move to anything else. Is this road maintained by the township or the county, or is it privately maintained?
Privately maintained.
I think I knew that from a previous hearing. And I think I knew that because there was some argument as to payment and
Mhm.
grading and.
It's a claim. Yep.
That, exactly. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that I had it all square. Next question,
Well, he's still,
next question.
so I still don't understand what you claim is damage. Damage meaning that the road's not usable anymore. Again, I'm trying to understand your affidavit, Mr. Brimacombe. When you say the road was damaged, how specifically did it prevent? I don't understand your word damage. How was the road damaged?
You want a bow on a road so water flows off to the sides. When you smooth the road, you create opportunities for water to sit on the road, which creates bigger potholes and makes the road less travelable, if that's a word.
But you're aware that I have legal right to access that road to go to and from my property, correct, Mr. Brimacombe?
You have the right to access the property, yes.
And I also have the right to maintain that road, correct?
I don't know, I'm not a lawyer.
Have I maintained that road for the last 28 years? Have I done
I don't
things to the
know
road with my Bobcat? Yes or no?
Yes,
Okay. So you're claiming that just the mere fact of me using the road with one of my vehicles caused damage to you or the road and to you. That's what you're claiming in your affidavit, Mr. Brimacombe?
your Bobcat can cause damage to the road, yes.
That's not what I asked you. I asked you, are you claiming that, because you said in your testimony by me just using one of my vehicles, I was damaging the road. Is that what you're
Using your
claiming?
If you use your Bobcat on the road and you smooth it out, but it naturally should have a bow so water runs off the road, you now have created an environment where the water sits on the causeway and creates bigger potholes.
So you're expecting the road to be maintained by not using a machine, Mr. Brimacombe? You're expecting people to go and by hand fill potholes with, I don't understand how you're claiming that's damage or what you're expecting.
I've filled potholes by hand and a shovel and stones. I've also taken bricks and stones and put it at the side of the causeway to keep the water damage down. Yes, I've done that by hand.
Isn't it true, Mr. Brimacombe, that I've maintained that road for 26 years myself with my Bobcat?
I don't know.
Well, forget the 26 years you don't know, isn't it? Do you agree that I've used my Bobcat to maintain that road?
You've used your Bobcat on the road. Maintain it. What do you mean? I don't know what the question
Well,
is.
you are aware of 3 or 4 years ago that the Donahues had a,
Are you
10
testifying or asking him a question?
I'm asking him a question, if he's aware of the road work that was done 4 years ago with the Donahues orchestrating the purchase of the material to raise up the causeway another foot, and I used my Bobcat to do all of that work. Are you aware of all that?
No,
Did you pay for any of that work?
not that summer.
So you admit that you did not pay for work that was done to that roadway?
He testified not that summer.
I'm saying at all, ever.
No, that's not what
That
the
wasn't
question
your
was.
question.
Have you ever paid me, Mr. Brimacombe, for any maintenance done on that road?
No,
So paragraph 19, Defendants have discarded waste on affiant's real property. Okay, so now, again, we're talking defendants, not defendant single. You're saying Suzanne and I have discarded waste on affiant, which is you. Suzanne and I have discarded waste on Mr. Brimacombe's real property. So can you tell, well, we're gonna start with Suzanne first. Can you testify as to how you know Suzanne put waste on your property? What specifically do you testify to that? Suzanne now specifically.
I didn't follow that whole question.
Testify, you say that defendants discarded waste on your property. We're gonna start with Suzanne first and then me. I'm specifically asking, what is your testimony or what evidence do you have that Suzanne put waste on your property? Suzanne, no, specifically, not my relatives, not me, not my kids, Suzanne specifically.
Specific to Suzanne?
Yes.
I can't point at specifically to Suzanne.
So you were not truthful in that.
Defendants can mean one, both, or many. It can be compiled of one or more. It doesn't necessarily have to mean Suzanne exactly as well. Here's the deal. We have 15 minutes before we're going to break for lunch. 15 minutes. And again, we're still stuck on Mr. Brimacombe's cross. What you're doing, Mr. Olsiums, what you're doing is you're whittling down your ability for me to hear your side of the story. You're just whittling all of that down, okay? Because the more that you're focusing on trying to prove Mr. Brimacombe is lying to the court.
We're almost done. We just have a few.
But
more-
we're not, because then we get to go to redirect, which could take a whole nother hour. And then we go back to recross, which could take a whole nother 4 hours. And then you have nothing. Then you have no time to testify. So what I'm telling you is you're limited
You're
here.
suggesting that I don't have the right to present my side of this
You
case?
do. And I'm telling you, but you have today, and this is it. This is all you have. You told me 2 hours, and I used my better judgment to set it for a whole day because, again, I know better. This is it. So use your time wisely. So use it wisely. You keep beating it and beating it and beating it and beating it and beating it. And if you don't think I get it, I do. I follow along pretty easily. A plus B equals C. It's pretty easy to do.
Well, Your Honor, this goes into a motion I'm gonna make based on this affidavit, which is at the source of this whole case and that you based your injunction on.
Okay,
If
good.
he's lying
Keep
through
going.
every part of this, that means their whole case is nothing.
If he lies on one part of it, the whole case is nothing,
Okay,
right?
and that's what I'm getting at.
So
And that's the
then
motion
get
I'm gonna
at
make.
it.
Okay. Number 20, Mr. Brimacombe, you say that defendants, again, Suzanne and I, when have you witnessed either Suzanne or I urinating on your property?
I've witnessed your family urinating on my property.
Okay, to be more specific though, Mr. Brimacombe, when did Suzanne urinate on your property?
I can't say that Suzanne urinated on my property.
Okay. When did I urinate on your property?
I've seen you or your family or your guests urinating on my property.
Okay, again, specifically though, Mr. Brimacombe, when did I'm a defendant, you say defendants have urinated.
Mr.
not-
Olsiums, when he uses defendants, he also means your tenants and people you have rented to. That's included in the term in the phrase defendants, okay? So we can make that all clear right now. That is included, correct, Mr. Anderson?
That is correct. Your Honor.
Exactly, because that's the law. When you rent a place, you rent something you own to somebody else for them to use it for a temporary period of time,
But that's not what he's saying in his affidavit.
but it is.
But Mr.
But it is.
But he's not a lawyer.
He's not a
So you're
lawyer.
assuming.
But you
right,
want to
so-
know what I am?
Right, but it's his term.
Magna cum laude in my law school, okay? Got it? Okay, got it? And also been on the bench for 8 years. I understand things. I've been practicing now, what is this, 2025, since 02. 23 years. And I'm going to tell you, civil law, contract law, business law, that was my jam. That's what I went to law school for. Property law, this kind of stuff. Okay? I get it. I understand it. I like it. Move on.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
Do you got it now?
Just one last question.
Okay, one last question.
Okay. So again, Mr. Brimacombe, you're not an attorney. Okay, so did you put together this affidavit, or did you write this out, or did someone else write this out for you?
I worked with Mr. Anderson on it.
So did Mr. Anderson type this out, or did you type it out?
Objection, foundation, speculation. To the extent he's asking if I typed it.
And I'm going to say it's sustained. I'm going to guess neither one of them typed it probably, because you know what? There's things called wonderful paralegals and excellent legal assistants who probably do all of that. But you want to know how it is? Because I've been in the legal business, again, 23 years. I've had multiple paralegals. I've had multiple assistants. I've been the peon little attorney who had to do all the little stuff like that. I know how it works, Mr. Olsiums. I know how affidavits get completed and drafted. I know what goes into them, okay? Pretty well learned on this subject matter, okay? Got it.
Okay, but last comment I have to make on that.
No comments, questions. No comments, questions. No comments, question.
So you did not type this affidavit out yourself, correct, Mr. Brimacombe?
I did not type that myself.
Was this shoved in front of you and Mr. Anderson said, go ahead and sign this?
Objection, Your Honor. It's shoved in front of you. Really, is that the language we're
Was
using?
I'll rephrase.
Sustained.
I'll rephrase. Did Mr. Anderson present this affidavit all typed out for you and you just simply signed what he typed out?
We discussed the affidavit multiple times. I have multiple years of experience with you, your family, your renters, and your guests.
Non-responsive.
No, it's responding exactly to what you want answered, Mr. Olsiums. He's responding exactly how affidavits are created and made. Exactly answering your question.
I asked him.
Exactly answering your question. Okay? So he can continue because he's exactly answering to you how an affidavit is created and formed from the very beginning. And I'm going to allow him a whole hour to explain the whole thing if he wishes, okay? A whole hour, if that's what it takes, because he's going to answer your question, all right? From the start to the end of how an affidavit is created and how he created this affidavit, okay? Is that what you want?
Well, I understand.
Is that what you want? Yes or no?
Let me
Is
explain.
that what you want?
No,
Yes
it's-
or no?
No, it's not what I want.
No. All right,
But an
done.
affidavit-
Then we're done. I know what an affidavit is. We're done. Do you have any other questions for Mr. Brimacombe? Because we have 10 minutes and then I'm recessing and then we're going to come back at 1. And then you are limited to 3 hours. You get 3 hours and whatever and however we're going to go in this thing.
Okay, Mr. Brimacombe, I think we've gone through the affidavit. Except for.
Are you sure? Is that your signature? Is the signature on the
He
affidavit, is that
testified to
yours?
that. It is.
My signature.
Do you swear under oath?
I swore under oath.
You did? And did you sign in front of a notary?
Yeah, I had to have it notarized.
Are you sure?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you really sure?
Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure. Okay, we're done with that. Now, move on.
So, Mr. Brimacombe, are you alleging that right now, today, that I'm renting my house, my cabin today? Is it being rented today? Yes or no?
Is it rented this day, this January or February 4th,
As the date of this
2025?
contempt hearing. well, I
February
guess-
4th, 2025, is it being rented today?
Not
If
that
you're
I'm
aware.
aware of.
Okay, he's not aware.
Was it being rented when Mr. Anderson put this contempt motion together?
I do not recall.
Well, certainly,
Objection as to time frame anyway, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Objections to what?
Time frame. When are you asking? What dates and times?
Relevant for this contempt hearing.
What
Again,
dates and times? You need to be specific as to dates and times.
well, Mr. Anderson's date of this contempt hearing is September 1st.
Excellent. Ding, ding, ding.
So as of September 1st, all the way until this date, are you aware of any current renting right now? Is a tenant inside my property right now? Yes or no?
As of February 4th?
As of February 4th, it's asked and answered no. That he
February
doesn't know,
3rd?
actually.
February 3rd?
What's the
September 1st.
question?
Are you aware of any renting? See, Mr. Brimacombe, the point of a contempt hearing is that you're seeing someone is currently in contempt, not past contempt, but current contempt. Okay,
Objection, Your Honor,
So,
mischaracterizes,
question-
states the law. He's
question
trying
I
to give
have,
my client legal advice on the stand, and he can't do that either.
Sustained. And I'm gonna say, here's another thing too. Mr. Olsiums, like 15 questions ago, you said you had one more question.
that was just on the affidavit.
All right, but we have
I'm
8
moving on.
minutes, so let's go.
So you're not aware of any current renting as of February 4th? There's no renter in my property as of today.
I don't believe a renter to be in your property today.
Okay. Was there a renter in my property on September 1st, 2024?
I do not recall.
October 1st,
I do not recall.
November 1st?
On that exact day,
Yeah,
on November 1st, 2024, on the exact day of November 1st, 2024, is that what we're talking about?
I'm trying to get in the scope of this contempt hearing, is there any current violation of your injunction right now today? That's what I'm asking Mr. Brimacombe, based on his testimony. Mr. Brimacombe, do you know of any renting that it has happened since the September 1st of 2024?
I don't know.
Mr. Brimacombe, would you say that your relationship with me is a friendly relationship? Would you say it's a contentious relationship? Would you say that we're best buddies? How would you describe our relationship?
I'll object as to relevance, Your Honor. I'm not sure that that's relevant to
It's
damages
relevant
and-
because it's his
contempt.
motivation for lying on this affidavit and coming up with this.
Oh my
lawsuit.
gosh.
I'm asking him how he looks at our relationship.
I'm going to sustain and strike what Mr. Olsium just stated, because you're making a conclusion. You're trying to be the judge in this case and concluding what you believe occurred. That's my job, okay? My job. Now, as to whether or not you have any relationship other than just being neighbors on, I wouldn't even describe it as an island. It's an inlet or a peninsula, exactly. Which again, we're still waiting. I think it's what, 3.5 years for our Court of Appeals decision? I don't know. I love the Court of Appeals. Smarter people than I making these decisions, so we'll wait to see. However, it's not.
I'll
an
rephrase
island.
the question.
No. Well, you can ask. You can ask him if you have any type of relationship at all, other than.
Do we have
neighbors.
any, okay, I'll rephrase the question. Do we have any kind of relationship at all, Mr. Brimacombe?
We share proximity on this peninsula with one another. That's the only relationship we have.
Okay. Do you like me, Mr. Brimacombe?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that you don't like the defendants, Mr. Brimacombe?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
Same question.
Mr. Brimacombe, have you ever called the authorities on the defendants?
I've called the sheriff department, I think twice when people were parked on my property.
More specifically, over the last 30 years, have you ever called the police on me or Suzanne?
I called the sheriff 2 times in the last handful of years because people were parked on my property. I do not know if it was you, Suzanne, your family, your renters.
Did you call the zoning department about certain excavating activity or grading activity going on at my property 3 years ago?
What was the question?
Have you ever called the zoning department? What the Burnett County zoning, our friends at the Burnett County zoning department? Have you ever called them about me or us?
I've called them about your septic system.
Okay. Which, gosh, I'm sorry, I got one more question on the affidavit, Your Honor. That reminds me. Okay, so you've called them about,
You're 3 minutes. You have 3 more minutes.
you've called them about, what about our septic system have you called them about?
I wanted to know about the septic system and what it was zoned for and how big it was relative to how many people you might have at your cabin.
Did I ever show you the septic system?
No.
So you made a reference, I'm not sure if it's in this affidavit or another one, that you smelled a septic poopy smell. Is that correct?
I've been,
He said poopy smell.
Septic-y, whatever that
I
whole
don't remember that word.
foul smelling or whatever.
Poopy foul.
Maybe show them the affidavit that we're talking about.
Isn't it true that you've complained about a poopy smell coming from my property? Yes.
Well, I guess he can answer if he's ever
He
used
can
the word
answer.
poopy.
Septic-y smell.
I haven't complained about that.
Do you allege that a septic smell is coming from my property?
I've been told by multiple people over multiple occurrences, over multiple summers, over multiple years.
Checked, not responsive.
I think he is responding.
He did respond, but I'm gonna,
Specific, yes or no question.
I've been told by multiple parties that they have whatever term you want to use, poopy, foul, whatever, that's an issue.
But more specifically, how do you know that the smell is coming from my property?
Renters of your property have told me that. The Donahues who are right next to your property have told me that. Fortunately for me, my house is far enough away so I don't have to smell it myself.
But you have no personal knowledge of my septic system, the status of my septic system, correct?
asked and answered, move
Thank
on.
you.
Is my septic system failing, Mr.
You have
Rincon?
1 minute.
If you know.
I'm not aware.
Is it possible that smell was coming from the Donahue's property?
I don't know.
Is it possible it was coming from your property?
Not coming from my property
And why do you think it couldn't come from your property?
because I would smell it if it was on my property.
We are done. We will now adjourn for 1 hour for lunch. I will see you at 1 o'clock. We are going to adjourn at 4 o'clock today and we will be done. You will have 3 hours for the rest of the hearing. And then I will make my decision. It will be a written decision. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask one question.
One question.
Will you want?
I'm gonna lock the courtroom for everybody's knowledge. No one will be let in here without having an escort by a clerk.
Question is, will you want a closing argument today or written closing argument? I'm open to either is my point.
I'm gonna think about it.
Fair enough.
Can I suggest both
No.
oral and written?
Again, we're
Either.
back on the record Examination of Mr. Brimacombe. Mr. Brimacombe, you are still under oath. Please come forward and have a seat back at the witness stand. Again, I will remind parties, you have 3 hours. We will only go until 4 o'clock today. You have 3 hours. Use your time wisely. I was asked to schedule this again, only for a couple hours, and I scheduled it for all day. This is it. Mr. Alciums, you may continue.
I think the last question I had, I don't know if it was answered, but I asked Mr. Brimacombe if you don't like me, Mr. Brimacombe, do you?
It was asked, it was objected to, and I
Okay.
said sustained.
Okay, just trying to figure out where we left off.
That was it.
Okay. How many times have we spoken together in the last 30 years, Mr. Brimacombe? To your best recollection?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Oh, is it less than 5?
No, more than 5.
Less than 10?
Our kids used to play together a couple of decades ago, so there were several interactions then,
Okay.
less interactions now. How do you add that up over 35 years? I don't know how to come up with that number.
It's safe to say that we don't have a beer together, correct?
I've never had a beer with you.
Yeah, so we're not buddies,
Well,
correct?
Here's the thing. We don't even know if Mr. Brimacombe drinks. He might not even drink alcohol.
Have a
He might
Coke.
not drink beer.
Okay. We've never gotten together in a social situation, correct? Mr.
We've
Brimacombe?
never gotten together and, no, we have. Our children used to play together. I would consider,
Last-
I would consider that social.
Okay, but that was 25, 30 years ago? Correct?
It wasn't 35 years ago because my oldest is 30 years old,
It wasn't within the last 10 years, was it?
not in the last 10 years.
Okay. So just a few more questions. Last question I have is about the septic system, because again, as a part of your, I'm not sure what affidavit it was on, but you, you make a claim that because 20 people rent my cabin for a week, that it has somehow damaged my septic system and caused the poopy smell. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I don't, he's putting words in my client's mouth.
I'm trying to understand where he's
not
coming from.
putting it- He's not citing any affidavit or anything that my client has ever said that in. And so unless he has that, I'm gonna object as to he's testifying for my client.
All right,
Did you-
here's again. Please, only one person talk at a time. Because otherwise, I'm gonna have to say we're done because it's so hard on my court reporter. I don't know if you see what she does, but she sits there all day long, taking down every single word, which has been a lot, Mr. Olsiums, every single word that comes out of everybody's mouth. It's not easy to do. So it's very, very difficult when people talk over each other. So sustained as to the objection. Mr. Olsiums, are we gonna wrap this witness up? Because I'm
We are.
guessing we have other witnesses.
We are. Just a couple more questions on the septic thing, and I think we're done.
All right.
Okay. So you are alleging that my septic system is failing, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Again, he's putting words in my client's mouth.
Did
I
you
don't know-
complain about the septic smell?
You gotta wait for me. Gotta wait for me. I think I'm gonna have a theme song. Sustained. That was not in an affidavit. At least from Mr. Brimacombe.
Mr. Brimacombe, are any of your other plaintiffs alleging the septic system is failing? My septic system is failing, that complaints about the smell or,
I've had many people complain about the smell, including plaintiffs. Nobody's ever said anything to me that said that your septic system was failing.
so why do you bring up the fact that the septic system smells? I guess, what was the,
People told me.
so then you're admitting that the septic system has no relevance in this case? It's
Your
not
Honor,
relevant?
objection. There's. Again, Mr. Alciums is testifying when he should be asking questions to Mr. Brimacombe.
I'm asking him, what is the relevance of this?
judges clapping, clapping, clapping. Stop, 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 stop. When you hear somebody speaking and words are coming out of somebody's mouth, that means zip yours shut. That means do not open them at all. Okay? At all. Mr. Anderson was speaking, and it was his time to speak. Now, I don't even recall what he was saying because you interrupted. Stop. Mr. Anderson, what were you saying?
Thank you, Your Honor. I remember what I said. I was trying to remember what I was going to say as well, but what I said was I objected based on Mr. Alcium's trying to testify and not allow Mr. Brimacombe to actually testify and actually ask him a question. The other piece, and I've forgotten the question now.
The question was actually about what other plaintiffs may have put in their affidavits.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit hearsay or a little bit speculation, I guess, if you will, as to that particular question. And there was something else, but I've forgotten now because we're 5 minutes later.
All right.
Can I make
And
an
that's
argument?
all, no, that's sustained, because here's the thing. You are asking Mr. Brimacombe what others have in their affidavits. You can ask others what they have in their affidavits, not Mr. Brimacombe. Okay? He didn't swear and sign to anything that's in any other plaintiff's affidavits or any other affidavits in the file.
But he testified in the prior hearing about, from December 4th, about smelly septic system, smell coming from my septic system. So he's the one that brought it in.
And
So
we've
I'm
already
asking-
asked and answered that many, many times, and I don't know where you're getting at that.
What I'm getting at is ultimately he's guessing as to where the smell is coming from. He's not an expert. He didn't have any specific person come out and say, oh yeah, it's his septic system failing. It's coming from his septic system. It's strictly conjecture. He's guessing. I'm trying to get to that point. And I'm trying to get him to admit it.
I'm raising my hand in my courtroom so I can speak. Okay, Mr. Alciums, I've had other witnesses testify. This is the second half of this case, okay? The second half. I've had 2 of your renters, 1, 2 at the last hearing, 1, 2 at the last hearing testify. And guess what? They said it. Okay? Heard it, got it, notes, affidavits, all the things. I have all the 1, 2, 3s, okay? I have enough here. You don't have to make him your primary witness to try and attack the case. He may be number 1 named. There's so many more here.
I know, but he's the one that his
Don't-
affidavit is the source of this whole case.
It is
And
not.
it's-
It is not the source
What
of
you
the whole
based your
case.
injunction on, Your Honor.
Mr.
So it kind of is.
Alcians, do you even know what I based my injunction on? No, because did you read my decision, my injunction? Probably not. You just probably read the last little bits of it where it said that I was enjoining you. Okay? You probably just read that. Those are the only words. Now, here's the thing. We can continue to waste time. Tick tock, goes the clock. Okay? We can continue to waste time, or we can get to a point where I can hear your side of all of this, Mr. Olsiams. I am dying to hear your side.
I got it. We don't need to spend, I got it. I'm
Okay.
almost done with Mr. Brimacombe.
Are you sure? You said that 3 hours ago.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, objection. I'm just trying to get where I'm trying to get to.
Then let's get to where you're going.
I think that's it. I have no more questions for Mr. Brimacombe.
All right, but now we get to go to redirect. And I'm gonna guess that there's quite a bit.
I'm gonna pare it down, Your Honor. There's some,
Oh,
but
actually, stop.
sorry.
I'm so sorry. Mrs. Alciums gets to ask questions if she would like to partake in this. You don't have to. You are a party who is named as a defendant. And you've been sitting here patiently and very, very quietly. You get an opportunity, if you wish, to ask questions of Mr. Brimacombe as well. You don't have to, but you can. And then I'm gonna need you to have the microphone though, so we can all hear you. You can, and the microphone can turn, so you can turn it to you.
Mr. Brimacombe. Would you say that I have partook in in the activities that you had in your affidavit? That's pretty broad.
It's kind of broad.
Do you have your affidavit up there?
I don't have the affidavit in front of me.
Can I provide that? to you now?
I've got it right here.
Mr. Anderson, why don't you just provide the affidavit? I don't have it
Right here.
except as an
I'll show the
electronic.
court so everybody knows we're on the same page.
This is the affidavit, document number 5.
Maybe I'll word it this way. In your testimony, Mr. Brimacombe, I have not heard you mention me partaking in many of these things. Let me know if that is an incorrect statement.
As I read down this, number 3, to my understanding, you're one of the owners. Number 5, you had renters. Your involvement or awareness of that, I don't know. The renters' vehicles, et cetera, as far as I know, you weren't on the property at that time, so you really probably don't know. Who parked their vehicles and such on my property, as I stated earlier, I don't know if it was you or other members of your family or renters or friends. The trespassing, I don't know that it was you versus your family, your friends, your renters. The removage of the trees and foliage, timber, damaging trees, destroying and removing trespassing signs. I have not seen you do that. Stakes being removed from the property. Didn't see you do that. I do not know the 3 or 4 times that the trail cams were damaged, whether you were on the property at that point in time. So I don't know. It's my understanding that Carl's the one on the road doing the road stuff. As I stated earlier, I did not see you urinate on my property. Best as I can tell, you're not the one blowing leaves and pushing snow and moving debris around from your property onto my property or others.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Redirect.
Excuse me, Mr. Brimacombe, do you have exhibit 7 in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just have a few questions about that exhibit. If you look at page 1 of that exhibit,
Mhm.
you see 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars there maybe?
In the foreground, yes.
Excuse me, Your Honor, he's got my copy. Can I have my
Yes.
copy back, please?
Yes, you can get your copy back.
So it's got 4 cars in the foreground you can see and 2 sort of back by the driveway. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and those 4 cars in the foreground, are those on property other than the Alcium's property?
Yes.
And the 2 cars in the near in the driveway, are those vehicles, is that Mr. Alcium's vehicle, or I'm sorry, driveway?
Yes.
Okay, and are those 2 vehicles, the best you can tell, on the Alcium's property or not?
Best as I can tell, they're on the Alcium's property, yes.
Okay, so the 4 vehicles that you see there in the foreground are not, but those 2 in the driveway are.
Yes.
Turn the page to the second page. What does the second page look like?
It's 3 of the cars from the last picture from the foreground that were in the foreground, and then it looks like another one in the background.
Turn the page 1 more. So is this the one with sort of that hit the truck?
That has, the hidden truck is on the,
fourth page?
the fourth page.
Okay. That hidden truck, I'm gonna call it a hidden truck, it's the one that you can't see on page 1 of the exhibit. Is that truck on the Alston's property?
Yes, I believe so.
Turn back to the third page. Okay, is this a picture basically looking down the Alston's driveway?
Yes.
And you see on the left row of cars, are there 4 cars there that you can see?
I'm not sure I'm looking at the picture you want me to look at.
Says page 3 of 4.
Yeah, that's the picture.
Okay.
On the left,
Oh,
on the left row side of the
Up.
white car.
within his driveway.
Yes. within his driveway.
Yes, I see 4 that are out in the driveway. Mhm.
And then in the right row, if you will, or column of cars, how many do you see there?
I see 2 clearly and maybe there's a third, but I see 2 clearly.
Okay, and in front of the 2 that you see clearly, do you believe that there's more room in front of that?
There's room for at least 1 more car, maybe 2.
And then there's the turnaround area in the Alston's driveway. You call
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you may not be able to see cars in that turnaround on that picture, but you could also fit a car or 2 in that turnaround. doesn't
You-
it, Chris?
You can fit 2 cars in that turnaround.
Mr. Brimacombe, when guests are at your property, are you there?
Yeah, 99% of the time.
Okay, and when you're not there, is it
My children,
your kids? Okay. Do they park on your property?
yes.
Do you have any foul smells coming from your septic system?
No,
Is there your property out on this peninsula? Is there enough space for the vehicles of the people that you have out to your property?
yes.
Is there enough space for them to park those vehicles?
Plenty of space on my property.
Do you rent out your property?
No,
Have you ever?
no,
Do you ever make any money from that property out on the
No.
peninsula? It's my understanding that the Alsium's property ends at the end of their driveway. Is that accurate?
just,
Why don't you look at page, I think it's 3 of that same exhibit 7.
page 3. The driveway that has the fencing, their property ends a handful of feet plus in front. So where we see these 2 cars, it ends maybe a little bit in front of those 2 cars.
A little bit, 5 feet or less.
Definitely less than 5 feet, but somewhere in that neighborhood.
On cross-examination, there's a question as to whether you've ever been on Mr. and Mrs. Alsium's property without their permission. I think you answered that question, yes. Is that true?
Yes.
What were you on their property for?
Generally to ask people to move their vehicles, trailers, ATVs off my property.
Okay, and that includes both renters and the Alsiums?
The Alsiums, their family, their friends, and their renters.
Have you ever gotten someone saying, no, I'm not moving it?
No,
Everybody's moved it?
everybody's moved it.
I want to ask you about the damage to the trail cams. Now, I understand that you don't have a picture of Carl Alsium's taking a screwdriver to your trail cam. But I want to understand why you believe it was the Alsiums that did that. So you've described the road. It's a mile and a half long. Is that accurate?
Yes,
And there's 5 houses on the island or the peninsula or whatever we call it? 4 or 5? How many?
one. There's 5 families that own various properties on the island. There's other buildings, but there's 5 families that own the property on the island.
Is there really much of a reason for anybody else to go down that road?
No, it's highly unusual actually that somebody finds their way to the end of the road.
Now, you know when this damage occurred. Is that a fair statement?
Yes,
And was there anything about the weekends or whenever it happened that you noticed about the Alciums?
They were there.
Now, the trail cams, well, first of all, how many trail cams were actually damaged?
3,
How many were damaged beyond repair?
1.
And the 3 trail cams that were damaged, where were they in relation to the Alciums property?
Those are the 3 that were closest to their property and closest to the end of their driveway.
On the dates or on the time frame when these trail cams were damaged, you have any pictures that you're aware of anyone else that was out there that time frame?
No, they weren't.
And in my understanding, in exhibit ten from the prior hearing, do you recall what exhibit 10 was?
Yes.
What was it?
Mr. Alciums and I presume his daughter looking, either pointing or waving at one of the cameras.
And it was the time frame when Mr. Alciums was pointing or waving at one of the cameras prior to the damage to the cameras?
Yes, sir.
Now, there's also pictures if you, I gotta find the exhibit, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Pictures on exhibit 9. Can I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Exhibit 9 appears to be page 4. It's a little bit blurry, but can you describe what that picture is?
Yes, there was a series of pictures and kind of put them into 2 halves. One when the ATV was on the right side of the tree. These were the ATVs on the left side of the tree. That is, I believe, one of his children hooking a chain onto the ATV.
Okay. Is that chain wrapped around anything?
The chain's wrapped around a tree.
And in the other pictures in that same exhibit, are there other pictures? Are there pictures of Mr. Alciums?
Yes,
That's the same time frame.
yes.
And do you know, was the damage to the tree that was being done, is that before or after the pointing of the trail cam?
Actually, this series of pictures, the trailing at the trail cam was kind of in the middle of it. He was on the right side of the ATV, running his ATV into the tree. And then they moved the ATV to the left side of the tree, as you're looking at the picture, hooked the chain up, and then saw the picture or saw the camera, and then they took the chain off and moved the ATV.
That tree that is depicted there, whose property is it on?
The Millers.
You were aware of any other trees that have been damaged? Or
Yeah.
taken down by the Alciums?
There's been several trees either damaged or taken down by, I believe, the Alciums, yes.
Okay, and were those trees taken down not on the Alciums property? Is that correct?
Correct. There's several trees that have been damaged or taken down on Miller's property and my property.
There you go. The actual real exhibit, thank you.
Sorry, what's the month?
Great.
Mr. Brimacombe, handed you what's been previously marked as exhibit number 3 today. Can you tell the court what that is?
It's a picture of somebody from the Alcium family peeing on my property.
Turn your attention to the garage in the background. Whose garage is that?
Alcium's.
Okay, whose truck is that in the background?
Alcium's.
Okay, there's an individual in the cab of the truck. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay, from the picture, you can't tell who it is. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, and the person standing in front, who did you initially think that was?
Mr. Alcium's.
Okay, and do you think it's still him today?
It's hard to tell. Could be Mr. Alcium's or one of his sons.
Your Honor, I offer it. Oh, Your Honor, I hesitated to present this picture today, but the door was kicked open on cross. I did put something.
Over,
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah. So I wanted to be sensitive, but I think I have to do my job. So I'd offer exhibit 3 with the slight redaction in the exhibit.
It is received.
Mr. Brimacombe, Mr. Alcium's on cross-examination asked you if you're aware of any renting of his property or of the Alcium's property between September 1 and February 1, 2024 to 2025. I believe you answered no. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Are you aware of any renting of the Alcium's property that occurred in July of 2024?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, the injunction that this court issued was in place in July of 2024. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Brimacombe, famous last words, I think one final question, but I'll try to make it that. You've indicated that there's been many cars on the property all at once and over the course of time. Obviously, the cars parking on your property has been a complaint of yours. It's been a complaint of many. Is it also a complaint of yours, just the sheer volume of traffic on the road?
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, the causeway is very narrow. It's only about a foot on either side of a car. And I don't exactly know how long that is, but it's substantial. So to try to back up and get out of the way and let people pass, that's a problem. It's also, as we discussed earlier today, a private road. So a lot of traffic is hard on that. It's in the water, so you got the water working on each side of that. So volume of traffic is an issue. Size of vehicles is an issue. Trailers are an issue. ATVs, four-wheelers, et cetera.
Does it affect the tone of the property? That's not the right word, but does it affect the
vibe.
feeling of the property?
The vibe, the feeling, yeah. Again, because it's at the end of this road, across the causeway, on private property, people who don't belong there don't come very often. And so when you have groups of people that have large numbers of vehicles, trailers, ATVs, four-wheelers, it changes the vibe, yes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for Mr. Brimacombe.
Thank you. Recross, Mr. Olsiums.
Real quick, Your Honor. So, Mr. Vermicombe, you're testifying that there's all these vehicles on quote unquote your property. Why didn't you call the sheriff, Mr. Vermicombe?
I don't understand your question.
Why didn't you call the sheriff in response to all these cars on your property?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that because it mischaracterizes testimony from prior on first cross when he testified that he has called the sheriff on a couple of occasions.
Sure. Mr. Meadows.
That is sustained.
So you're so you're saying that every time you had somebody that was parking on your property that you went inside and asked them to move it and they moved it every time?
Objection, argumentative, and again, assuming facts not in evidence, it also mischaracterizes testimony.
Sustained. You can rephrase.
So, Mr. Brimacombe, every time that there was an alleged parking violation, did you go and ask them to move the car?
To my awareness, when people parked on my property, I asked them to move the car.
Did they move the car?
Yes,
So, Mr. Brimacombe, what are you claiming about somebody, what's the damage that you're claiming with somebody parking their car on your property and then them moving it? What's the damage you're claiming?
if part of the reason to own this property is a vibe and having relaxation, serenity, and peace, having to go down and ask people to move weekend after weekend, month after month, summer after summer, year after year, goes against the whole purpose to have a property like that.
So what if it turned out that really these cars were not parked on your property?
Objection hypothetical.
And
So, Mr. Brimacombe, going to the trail cams, you're saying that the reason why you don't have a picture of anybody actually doing the vandalism was that it came from behind the camera, correct?
Objection beyond the scope of redirect. We never talked about that. That was just uncrossed.
No, he mentioned the trail cams as to why there was no damage or why he didn't see it. And his testimony was that it was from behind, that somebody damaged it from behind.
That was on.
So he brought it up.
That you have, your questions are limited to his redirect.
Right, I get it.
And so and that question was not off of his redirect questions. That would have been off of his direct,
Or his cross.
or his cross, actually, his cross questions to you. I forgot because that's where we started, was cross, and we've never ended. So, no, that's sustained.
So it's safe to say you don't have any picture of anybody doing damage to your trail cams, Mr. Brimacombe, correct?
Objection asked and answered, also beyond the scope of redirect.
He did, it has been asked and answered, sustained.
So go to this picture that was just introduced, somebody urinating. What exhibit was this again?
Three.
I'm sorry?
Three.
Okay, Mr. Brimacombe, exhibit 3, isn't it possible that somebody is peeing on the road?
No, the car's on the road.
Okay, and then defense exhibit number 2. Can I approach the witness? Just ask him.
As
Is it
long
true?
as it's off of the recross or redirect. I am so confused because we started, and again, this is a long one witness. As long as it involves a question from the
It's this
redirect.
picture that they introduced in redirect.
Then
So it's about
yes.
this.
You may.
Okay. So, Mr. Brimacombe, isn't it true that this person peeing in this picture is actually on this survey, is approximately right in the easement area on this survey?
No, because that doesn't show the road, so it's impossible to tell exactly where the road is. So therefore, we can't see exactly where your car would be. And this person is right next to my cameras.
So where on this survey is that person peeing then, Mr. Brimacombe? Where on the survey is it?
To the west.
What does that mean to the west? Can you, where specifically, mark with your pencil, where is somebody peeing?
We
Where on the
don't,
survey?
we
Where on the
don't,
survey.
Well, he would have to mark, if you're asking him to mark something, it has to be on the actual exhibit.
So in
Here's a
relation to
pencil.
anything, Can you mark on the exhibit? where
the
it's at?
survey doesn't show the road, as I've stated multiple times.
I have a question. My question is, Mr. Brimacombe, if I were to give you the formal exhibit number 1, which is the survey, and a
And it-
pencil, would you be able to mark with an X where the person is urinating? And that's a yes or a no question.
If I were to mark it with an X,
That's just yes or no.
Yes.
So then I'm going to hand you the real exhibit 1 and a pencil.
So I'm gonna take mine back.
Yes, you can have mine and you will mark it with an X.
Can I see where he marks it?
Obviously.
All right,
You're
I have a
gonna show
question
everybody.
because it doesn't have the road.
No
So
questions. So then that's why it was a yes or no question. That's why I said yes or no. You could have said, I don't know. No.
I don't
because
know.
There's no roads.
there's
But
no
you said
road.
yes and you marked an X. Mr.
He
Anderson,
said yes,
yes, and
so he needs to put an X on it.
well, he can change his mind. It's an answer, but I need to know, this is getting way out of hand and out of control. Okay? Somebody's peeing and somebody's peeing
Yep.
on or very near property that is very near a camera. I can see that visually with my eyes. I can see visually with my eyes a truck that has, at least in another picture, was identified as Mr. Olsium's truck. But Mr. Olsium has not identified that truck, so I don't know if for a fact that is Mr. Olsium's truck. Those are all the things I know at this point in this time. Whether or not we can mark it on the survey, I don't find relevant in my decision because
Saying it's on his
I
property.
can't understand your questions as it relates to the survey anyway, because
Because
you're
it
so
shows-
very confusing.
Because it shows he's claiming all of this, it's on his property, and it's clear by the survey, it's not his property.
Mayor, I think that's an argument that he's trying to make, and I don't think we're gonna get anywhere with the questions at this point in time. So I would ask him to
is.
strike that and move on.
It is stricken and we are moving on. Again, Mr. Olsiums, if you want time to be able to testify and you provide all of those things to me,
I get it, I get it.
you can provide all of those things to me, but first we have to get there.
Just trying to get him to admit it. Him admitting it's a lot more powerful than me testifying to you.
Is it working? Is it working? Is it working? So
Well, I think-
obviously,
I think you'll put the
His-
dots together when I,
his answers are not what you want to hear. That's because they're his answers.
I'm just
you
simply
can-
asking where on the survey is this person peeing? You can see my house, so that means you can see lot 3. So he should be able to mark on the survey where somebody is, where that person's peeing. You can see my house right there. So if he can mark on the survey where that person's peeing and it's not his property, he impeached himself.
I can't tell by looking at the survey and looking at where the person is peeing on somebody else's property, where it is. And I look at surveys a lot. I've looked at surveys a lot, and I can't tell. Because I'm not seeing where there's a roadway marked on the survey, and I'm not seeing where there's a roadway because it's covered with snow on exhibit 3.
Well, obviously, we have to get to the property and it's there somewhere, isn't it? It has to be.
Somewhere. Everything's
fact-
somewhere. So, except your testimony, because we're not there yet. That may be somewhere. We'll see. Right?
Mhm.
So let's try and get there.
Okay, is he gonna mark on there an X or not? Where do we, he said yes.
Mr. Brimacombe, I'm going to
No.
ask you directly. This is a yes or no question. Looking at exhibit 1, the survey. Looking at exhibit 3, the individual urinating somewhere. Are you able to look at exhibit 3 and exhibit 1 and identify with an X where this individual is urinating? Yes or no? No speculation. It's a yes or no.
If it's not a speculation, the answer is no, because I don't see the road.
Then it's no.
Okay, one of the things, again, I don't want to upset you, Judge.
You're just testifying again. I want to hear you
wanna-
testify. I
I'm
don't
trying to
want to
make
hear you
you-
testify through
I get
asking
it.
questions.
I get it, but again, it all comes down to specifics on the survey here. I
And you're
noticed,
testifying, you're testifying, you're testifying.
I wanna show him the video.
Stop. No. I'm about
Okay,
done. You get
okay.
2 more questions. I'm done.
okay. And you made comments about the traffic on the road, Mr. Brimacombe. Again, frequency, does that happen 5 times or less a year? You mentioned that you complained about traffic damaging the road. How often does that happen per year?
I'm not sure your question. How often are your renters there? I don't know what the question is.
You testified to a road getting damaged because of vehicles going over the roadway, correct? Do we want her to bring back your testimony about what you were testifying to as to what vehicles were
Are we
causing
talking
this?
about your renters? What are we, I don't understand
you
your
made-
question.
Mr. Olsiams, that means it should ding, ding, ding to you. It's confusing and it's beyond the scope and you're asking in an infinite amount of time with an infinite amount of people. You're not being very specific. Are you asking with everybody driving on the road? Are you asking within a time frame, people driving within a road? Your question is overbroad and
He
vague.
testified that there was some kind of damage happening to the roadway.
I get it. I got it.
Remember
Good.
that?
I heard it.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm asking him about what the frequency of that is. I mean, we're not stupid. We're talking about gravel, we're talking about rock. What, how frequent was
Okay.
that?
Exactly there. How
I'm asking that.
frequently has the road been damaged?
No, how frequently has traffic that you claim is damaging the road, how frequently does that traffic go on the road?
Your rental groups come 3 out of 4 weekends this summer. That's 9 over the warm weather months. Throw in Memorial Labor, that's 11, couple times in the winter, couple times in the spring. It's probably 10 to 15 times a year.
But you never witnessed that yourself personally. You're just guessing, correct?
No, I'm up there a lot. I've witnessed those weekend after weekend, month
How many
after month,
times have you
summer after
witnessed-
summer, season after season.
How many times have you witnessed that kind of traffic going through over the causeway?
Every time you have large groups.
That's it, Your Honor. No more questions.
All right. Miss Olsiams, do you have any questions?
No further
All right.
No further.
All right. You may step down. Thank you. Now,
Your Honor, I think this.
Oh,
this
thank
one was
you.
yours.
so much. Now we get to move on to another witness, Mr. Anderson. How many more witnesses do you have?
Well, I've debated that, Your Honor.
It's all up to you because we
I-
have till 4. That's it.
Um,
It's actually your motion, your case.
fair enough.